I have 9 o'clock. And I'd like to call to order the King County Finance and Budget Committee of Wednesday, December 29th, 2021. Can we have roll call, please?
Ford,
Present.
Leonard,
Leonard here.
Martin,
Martin here.
Sanchez, Surges,
Surges here.
Tepe,
Tepe here.
Jepro,
Jepro here.
Pirog,
Pirog here.
Berman.
Berman here.
I have a quorum.
Sanchez here.
Very good. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from November 24th?
Ford moves.
Ford moves,
Martin seconds.
Martin second. Discussion, any changes? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. I have no knowledge of anyone making public comments. Is there anyone online? Public comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to Treasury report. Treasurer Kilborn. Morning.
Good morning. You have the report that's submitted on file. I have some additional news for you in reference to investments as we look forward. The couple of days before Christmas, we did a couple repurchases of commercial paper and T-bonds that had come due with some really nice updates. We did a $10 million commercial bond purchase at 6 months at 23 basis points, which previously had been at 11 basis points. Same thing with the T-bill purchased $5 million for 6 months at just over 14 basis points. The previous 6 months for that had been 4 basis points. So the investment returns, and we're staying short because we're looking forward, knowing that they continue to go up, are turning positive. The reason they're turning positive, though, is the inflation that we're looking at. So we'll always be chasing that, but the investment return should pick up because the environment's picking up, and we do short-term repurchases to capture that and be ready as we move forward. Any questions?
I do. Pirog, Mr. Kilborn, hi.
Yes.
I read yesterday that there are some concerns that if the Federal Reserve starts raising our interest rates, that our investments are going to start declining because of their investments in stocks and whatnot are going to be going down. Have you heard anything like that?
There's always a delicate balancing act by what the Fed does in reference to their actions to try to slow inflation while not hurt the economy. It almost always happens as we come out of a red hot economy and then inflation goes. So yes, I've heard that. And at times the Fed has been successful in doing that soft landing, and other times not so successful.
All right. So our investments, though, are going to be somewhat, I would hope, obviously very stable. So we're not-
Yes, I mean, unfortunately, that's why you see our returns lower than you'd like in your personal ones, because our investments are safe. And we try to keep it short so that we can take advantage of the short upswings.
Okay, so we have ultimate flexibility as best we can.
Yes, ma'am. That's one of the intents.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Question, Jepro?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the investments by and large are short term I mean, most of them are shorter term, correct? I mean, it's not like we bought 30-year bonds that might take if inflation went up.
Oh, gosh, no, we don't have investments that far out.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, man. Our next item is our finance director's report. Mr. Hansick,
Good morning, everyone.
morning.
Included in the agenda packet, as always, would be the budget performance reports, and these are for the month of November. I would just like to make sure that you realize that these are only preliminary reports. We do have a few months worth of work ahead of us in terms of accruing revenue and expenses. So the final report really won't be ready until closer to April. But this at least gives you an idea of where we are at this point in time. And then I've got, within my finance report, I've got about 3 pages worth of comments on the various variances for each of the funds. And I've noted where budget adjustments will be necessary. There's really just minor adjustments for the most part are necessary, except for the coroner's office, which currently services are $304,000 over the annual budget. So we'll need to prepare an adjustment as we normally do for the coroner's office. And that will be coming probably in the next month or 2 at the latest. So if we move down to page 16 in your agenda packet, to the health insurance fund monitoring, again, this is only preliminary because we do have some payroll related contributions to be accruing, which would increase the fund balance to the positive. But at the same time, we'll also be accruing the claims that have been incurred but not yet reported. That's a calculation that's performed by our insurance broker, and that will be provided to us within the next month or 2, and it's part of our year-end close. So once we have those figures, we'll have a truly a clear final picture of what the balance is. But as of December 22nd, the health insurance fund cash balance was $7.3 million. And again, our target there is $9 million. Moving on to the shared and direct state tax revenue, we have been doing very well compared to last year. We're almost $7.5 million ahead of last year and $9.5 million ahead of what we had budgeted. We had budgeted very conservatively because at the time we weren't sure of how well the economy would do with the pandemic, but obviously it has improved greatly, and that there's some additional revenue within that $9.5 million that has to do with the cannabis sales tax revenue, which of course was not included in the budget for 2021. Moving on to the next page, the contingency balances. We have the same $737,000 left remaining in the contingency that we could, some of that will necessarily be used to cover the coroner's overage. But other than that, most of that will be intact and will be able to be added back into our reserves when we close the year. The capital fund status, 51% of building management's budget has been expended, 57% of information technology, and 79% of the multi-use facility. American Rescue Plan funding status. Now this snapshot is a snapshot that from my perspective, and so I'm only looking at what was actually charged to the fund at this point in time. So as of December 22nd, there's a balance remaining of $37.5 million in the fund, and we're expecting to get an additional $51.7 million in this coming spring. And then I've listed for you the items that I'm aware of in terms of estimated revenue recoupment and the estimated personnel expense reimbursements that the board still has yet to consider, and if they're approved, That would bring down the balance to 11.5 million. Now, that does not include any of the projects that the committee is considering and what may possibly be on a recent agenda. This is basically what was in the pipeline that comes through our office. So it's just one of many perspectives on the fund. The operational reserves, I had received public comments that we weren't very transparent in what our reserves are. So I tried to take that into consideration when I prepared this monthly report. And so I just wanted to note that we do have only just a few reserves that are available for operations, especially for the general fund. And that would be the special reserve fund, which currently has a balance of almost $4.5 million, which are the savings that are remaining from the payroll reimbursements from the CARES Act from last year. And we have $125,000 that have been carried over from the judiciary that they're reserving, or that the board had agreed to reserve for the JJC build out. And so we're expecting that will be utilized for that purpose. We do have the property tax freeze protection fund. The balance is about $389,000 remaining after what we drew down to balance the 2022 budget. And we have $5.2 million in the emergency reserve. I provided a recap of our budget when we closed the 2022 budget gap. So I just put in the final figures for you. We had $10.5 million gap that we had to close. And then these were the sources. The gap was actually increased by $1,001,000 when we removed the RTA sales tax allocation increase to the general fund. And so we had to replace that by an additional drawdown of savings from the American Rescue Plan payroll reimbursements that we anticipate will be approved. And then we have the $1 million savings from the sheriff's correctional expense and the $1.6 million drawdown from property tax freeze, $1 million drawdown from COVID payroll reimbursement savings, and then the $6.9 million American Rescue Plan revenue recoupment. So those were the main things that were applied to the budget gap to bring it down to zero. We are still working on preparing the budget book itself. Once all those amendments were approved, that finalized all the figures, and now we're working on the executive summaries and the various summaries that are composed, that compose the budget book itself, and it's quite an undertaking. So it's going to take us probably another few weeks to finish that, and once it's finished, it'll be distributed to everyone. We do have a preliminary fourth quarter state receivable report. It's actually looking very good. Our receivables are from the state are down in comparison to how they normally would be. For example, probation salary, sometimes we've seen that as more than a year behind in their payments to us, but we're only 4 months behind at this point. And then the other variances are the normal variances. It's the normal amount of time it takes for the state to reimburse us for the various things. So our balance from the state is in pretty good shape. I wanted to just highlight some things regarding the year-end timeline. Payroll is currently processing all of the wage increases and preparing for the issuance of the W-2s. Finance is currently preparing for the issuance of the 1099 for the vendor payments, and we're also preparing our year-end reconciliations and adjustments and accruals and the audit schedules, and we'll be doing that over the next few months. So that is really going to be an intense focus of our time. General fund revenue, like the final figures for 2021, will not be known until the end of January, and even then there may be still additional adjustments, but we should have a pretty good idea by the end of January where we stand revenue-wise. And then expense-wise, we should be done with most of the accruals by the end of February. So at that point, then we could start to have a picture of how much excess revenue over expenditures we will have. And so we could make a determination as to how they should be allocated into what reserves and for what purposes in the month of March. The actual audited financial statements will not be available until the end of May. Regarding the audit itself, the preliminary audit field work will beginning the week of January 17th, and that's only for a few days. And then the final audit field work starts on March 7th, and that takes place about the entire month of March. The month of April is then when we are preparing the financial statements. And then the month of May is when everything is under review and the executive summaries are prepared and the auditors issue their opinion. Look, I wanted to give you an update on the cost of service study. If you remember, we had contracted with the same firm, although they're under a different name. Last time we had the cost of service study done was by Fiscal Choice Consulting. It's the same consultants, they're just working for a new firm, MGT Consulting. They conducted a study for animal control, the sheriff's office, recorder's office, county clerk's office, and then environmental management for subdivision fees. They've completed their study. I've just actually finished reviewing it. And now if we were to implement the recommendations for the fee changes, it's looking like on an annualized basis, we could increase the general fund revenue by roughly $500,000. The recorder's office and the county clerk's office are recommending no changes to their fees based on the results of the study. The sheriff's office is where there's a significant increase in revenue, about $500,000 that the study would indicate would be necessary to recoup their costs, as well as what the sheriff is recommending. And then the environmental subdivision fees would bring in, I think, an additional $23,000, if I remember correctly, if those fees had been implemented based on last year's revenue. So the procedure then would be to bring forth resolutions or ordinances as would be appropriate by each of those offices. So it's basically the sheriff's office and the environmental management department to bring forward their recommended fee changes and resolutions to presented to their standing committees. And then from there, they would move to the finance committee and to the executive committee and full board. So, but the earliest they could be approved would be probably February. So we're already like a quarter of the year away into the year. So that would reduce the amount of revenue that we could collect this year based on those fees. But of course, going forward, those fees would be in effect. The transition audits, they're mostly completed except for, I should say they're all completed except for the county treasurer. That one, and it's my fault, I did not follow up on it. We have the one completed from when the former treasurer left, so we had that one completed, but we did not have the one completed as of the time the new treasurer took over. And so that one is currently underway. And so that should be completed soon. And then we also have the additional transition audit for human resources due to the termination of the human resource director. And so that one will be underway as well. And then because we have the same person who served as interim for building management became the executive director, it was determined that it was not necessary to have an audit in that transition from interim to permanent. And then for the purchasing court, I just have a few things to highlight. There's only 4 bids and requests for proposals and RFPs that were issued for the month of November. Auction sales in November were $8,800, and total fiscal year to date cost savings was $692,000. That's concludes my report. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Mr. Martin.
Joe, this is John Martin. I have a question just to confirm what I think I read and what I understand. With the American Rescue Plan, with the assumptions in place that you have drawn relative to our revenue recoupment, what have you, we have 11 million in the pot right now with another 53 million to come. Is that correct?
Well, no, actually, that's including the 50. And this is, I mean, this is just to give you an idea from my perspective.
it's
Obviously, the
inclusive.
board has to, approve these revenue recruitments, and they may decide not to do so or not to fully do so.
All
So
right.
it's still in flux, but this is just, I wanted to put this out there so that you have a place you can look to see what the estimated amounts are.
Okay, thank you.
Are any other questions, comments? Yes.
Thank you,
Clark.
Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to mention that if in fact we have approximately 11 million unallocated from the American Rescue Plan monies, after both allocations are made to us and our expenses are given, I think it's very, very important that we set aside a large portion of that for our 23 budget. As you can see from our 22 budget, we were about 10.5 million under budget. We took about 7 million from our, so I think it'd behoove us to be very careful here with this remaining 11 million and put a large portion of that aside for the 23 budget, since we're not going to have any other gigantic revenue increases for 23.
Good point. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair,
Yes. Who's it?
Pepe here.
Seppi? Mr. Seppi.
I'd like to disagree with Mr. Leonard. I think the continued allocation of ARP funds just to handle our budget situation is inappropriate. And I think that we should look strongly at coming up with and immediately at coming up with a task force that's going to begin looking at the issues that I keep bringing up associated with the fact that the board in the past has not done anything to fill in the gaps associated with the increased costs that we have on an annual basis, and yet they fail to, yet the board fails to increase the tax revenue. So we need to start looking at that rather than start looking at using these ARP funds to fill in our budget. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Sturgis.
Thank you, Mr. Seppi. Any other comments, questions?
Mr. Chairman, Sturgis here.
Yes, Mr. Sturgis.
Just a reminder that our business analytics report is ongoing. We expect to have that near the end of Q1. And at that time, I'm sure there will be recommendations on how we could proceed on this. Until that time, Mr. Leonard's, recommendation to bank, a large portion of that money is not wrong. And Mr. Teppi's urgency to begin looking at alternatives is not wrong. But without having that data to analyze, I'm not sure how we could do it. So I just wanted to chime in and give that reminder that we absolutely are taking steps. We just don't have the data back yet. Thank you.
Mr. Martin.
Just one last comment. I think we also need to remember the two speakers that just spoke. Even if we adopt different tax structure, there's a lag time in collecting it. So we can't just presume that we're going to solve this problem in 22 and not need the money in 23. We can do it all on paper, but it has to be collected, and that there's always a year lag here in that process.
Any other? I think our comments show that everybody is concerned about what's going to happen in the future. And I think there are many avenues that we can take to get there. So it's
Sanchez
to be
here.
discussed. Joe, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Sanchez with
your
the question,
efforts.
Mr. Chair.
Who, the question, who?
Sanchez.
Sanchez?
Yeah, I had a question for Mr. Onzik.
Yes, Mr. Sanchez.
Oh, yeah, it's just kind of, I don't know if this is even secondary to the conversation, but I noticed we do the transition audits when we have new people take over as department head. In one of them, we didn't do a transition audit. I think that was building management, maybe because we hired him. And this is really just a process question, like, what is the ultimate goal of the transition audit? And then why did we choose not to do one in a certain circumstance? Just so
Well,
I understand.
Yes, the transition audit is just to make sure that we have a full accounting of where things stand within an office or department between the appointed or elected officials that were overseeing those assets at the time. So that way, then I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. So the new elected official, the new appointed official can come in and begin, work in their office knowing that everything is properly accounted for when they start. And so that the board also can be assured that everything, when that person that left, everything was properly accounted for and the person coming in has a clean slate, so to speak. And so that there's no ambiguity as to perhaps, like, just hypothetically, let's say there was something missing, funds were missing or funds were unaccounted for, there'd be no ambiguity as to under whose watch that may have occurred. So that's the purpose of the audit, is just to assure everyone that everything was properly accounted for, nothing's missing at the point in time the transition occurred. So we did do one for building management. Maybe I did not explain it properly in my report. So when Mr. Sparks left, everything was accounted for properly up through the time that he left. And then we had Mr. Allen take over as the interim. And so from the point at which Mr. Allen has taken over, then we know that he had a clean slate to start from. And just because he was appointed or his status changed from interim to executive doesn't change the fact, doesn't really change anything because it's the same person. So, it both is occurring under his watch while he was interim and now the permanent executive director. And so that's why there's no audit as of the point in time that transition from interim to executive occurred.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Yeah, that makes total sense. My assumption was that there hadn't been an audit since Sparks, but since there was, that's helpful for Mr. Allen. So thank you for answering that. I appreciate it.
Okay, you're welcome.
Very good. Any other questions? Thank you again, Joe. I'm sorry.
Can you hear me? This is Corinne. Hi.
Yes,
I
Corinne.
had to switch to my phone. Oh, hi. Yes. Good morning, everybody. I had asked Mr. Onzik to do an analysis for me to get actually a cost, and he has since provided that cost for me on the cost of mandated services. And that last study was done in 2017. Now, I understand that we're doing the financial assessment of our compensation across all of our county employees, but this is also an actual cost of what our mandated services are. I'd like to reference Mr. Tebby's concern as well as all of our concerns regarding how we're going to continue to manage a budget that becomes increasingly leaner as our expenses become higher. So the cost of this is an additional $100,000. This would update all new mandated services, like say for judiciary, et cetera, so that we are online with what we actually have to fund rather than what is an accessory funding. So that'll be something that I'd like to bring forward to your thought. I'm just bringing this to your attention. I'm asking for no action on this. And we can talk about this next month with perhaps a resolution if we feel appropriate. So I want to make sure that we're very much aware as a board that we have declining revenue with increasing expenses and how we're going to manage that. So thank you.
Thank you, madam. Any other comments? Very good. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Our next is auditor's report. Ms. Wegman?
Good morning. Our report is on file, but I can address any questions that there may be.
Are there any questions, comments? Thank you very much. New business. Item number A, a resolution authorizing transfer of fiscal year 22 extradition budget from the state's attorney's office to the sheriff's office.
Well, Leonard moves.
Leonard moves. Ford second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges.
Point of order.
Yes. Point of
Sorry,
order.
this is Myrna Molina. I'm sorry. This was removed from our agenda in the judiciary, public safety at this month's meeting. Our state's attorney decided to wait to move this forward. So it didn't go through judicial and public safety. So I asked that this be tabled.
Hey, Public
All right.
Safety Chair Molina from Sheriff Hain. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So we realized at the sheriff's office that the money had already been moved over from the state's attorney to the sheriff's budget. So I think that was before Jamie made that statement. She wasn't aware that it had transferred. So this is more of a housekeeping thing to make that transfer, unless we want to shift it back on paper.
Well, I guess we just have to change the committee flow because it did not pass judicial and public safety.
I got you. Just want to make you aware of that.
So are we clear on what we're doing? Should we go on with our vote?
Comment, Shepro?
Shepro?
Yeah, if judicial public safety did not act upon this, then I would suggest that this committee does not have jurisdiction of the resolution at this point. I mean, it should not presumably have been put on the agenda if it didn't.
That's
clear
fine.
the committee.
We'll remove it from our business today. So resolution A, Mr. Leonard.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, then I move that we table it.
I'll second. Tepe here.
Or
And who was our second?
extradition budget
Happy.
is showing on our
Yeah.
side. Yeah. Thanks.
Should we use, this is Pirog, should we use the word table, reference what our state's attorney has always warned us? Should we move it to the next meeting of the justice,
Judicial.
I'm sorry, judicial, thank you, Bill, thank you,
Uh-huh.
judicial?
Yes, our state's attorney, please.
It could be done either way. You could make a motion to send it back to the Judicial Public Safety Committee. That might be the most straightforward.
I'd like to amend my motion then to move it back to judicial and public safety for their review and approval before we vote on this.
Mr. Tepe, is that all right?
That's fine.
All right. So the motion is to send it back to the judicial. Any other? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
No.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Spearman.
Berman, oh, yes.
Yeah, I saw that email.
Passes.
Okay, item B. Resolution approving the purchase of 13 vehicles and a budget rollover adjustment for the sheriff's office.
Ford moves.
Ford moves.
Tepe seconds.
Leonard second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez, Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. And item C, a resolution amending the 2022 fiscal year budget to rollover of funds for a business analysis project. We have a motion approved. Board moves.
Tepe seconds.
Deputy seconds, discussion.
This is Director Onzik.
Yes, Anthony.
Okay, I would just like to point out that we did make a correction to the resolution on the budget adjustment portion. We realized after it had passed the Human Services Committee that the portion of the budget adjustments that has to do with reserving the funds in FY21 was missing. So we added that section so that FY21 budget adjustment section, those 4 lines have been added to the resolution since it passed Human Services, and it was done as a correction. So I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Very good. Any comments, questions? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. And item D, a resolution authorizing payment of liability insurance premium expense for fiscal year 2022.
Sturgis moves.
Leonard seconds.
We have a motion to second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. And item E, a resolution authorizing fiscal year 22 budget adjustment for COVID-19 crisis grant.
Tepe moves.
Deputy move, Ford second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. And item F, a resolution, fiscal year 22 budget adjustment for the King County AC starting salary change from the Health Department. We need a motion.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves. Board second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Item G. A resolution amending the 2022 fiscal year budget, rollover of funds for completion of external audits pursuant to county auditing law 55 ILCS 56-31005.
Leonard moves.
Ford, second.
Leonard moves, Ford second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges, Tepe,
Sorry, Sturgis, yes. I am muted, sorry.
Tepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. And item H, a resolution approving contract amendment with Tyler Technologies New World for unlimited business licenses.
Martin moves.
Martin moves,
Leonard seconds.
Leonard second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Item I, a resolution approving contract amendments with Tyler Technologies New World for Brazos crash software. Ford moves.
Leonard second.
Leonard second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Pepe,
Happy, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. And item J, a resolution approving a software conversion from Granicus Minute Track Agenda and Minutes software to the Granicus Legislator platform. Do we have a motion to approve?
Ford moves.
Ford moves. Do I have a
Leonard
second?
second.
Martin second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Pepe,
Happy, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Item K, a resolution authorizing an emergency purchase affidavit for Adult Justice Center remediation project.
Martin
Leonard moves.
Martin seconds.
Leonard moves, Martin second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Pepe,
Happy, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. And item L, a resolution authorizing contract with ESRI Enterprise Agreement. Do we have a motion?
Leonard
Sanchez
moves.
moves.
Leonard moves, with it, Pepe, second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Pepe,
Happy, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Item M, a resolution approving a contract for a water testing firm for the Judicial Center campus with Philogenics Independent Water Management of Warrenville, Illinois.
Martin moves.
Martin moves,
Ford, second.
Ford second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Pepe,
Happy, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. And item N, a resolution authorizing an expenditure for an emergency purchase affidavit for chlorine flushing system at the Adult Justice Center.
Martin moves.
Martin moves,
Ford, second.
Ford second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Pepe,
Happy, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Item O, a resolution approving 2022 contracts for court-appointed counsel.
Leonard moves.
Leonard moves,
Ford, second.
Ford second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Pepe,
Happy, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Item P, a resolution approving contracts for drug and alcohol evaluation and referral services.
Leonard moves.
Leonard moves, Ford second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Pepe,
Happy, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. And item Q, a resolution authorizing fiscal year 21 emergency management program grant for the Office of Emergency Management.
Leonard moves.
Leonard moves. Martin,
Sanchez seconds.
second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. And R, a resolution authorizing fiscal year 2022 contract with the Clean Harbors for the household hazardous waste services.
Sanchez moves.
Martin moves, Sanchez second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Item S, a resolution authorizing amendment to the financial policy regarding procurement cards.
Leonard moves.
Leonard moves,
Martin, seconds.
Martin second. Discussion.
This is Director Onzik.
Mr. Onzek?
Yes, I just wanted to just point out a couple of things regarding this policy. It basically fleshes out many of the details for administrating the P cards that we wanted to put into writing and have it codified within the financial policy. Most of it reflects what we've already been doing from a practical standpoint, but there are a few changes that I wanted to make sure that you were aware of, that this policy, if implemented, would enact then. And that would be that the number of cards, purchasing cards, and the transaction limits that were issued to each department would come before their standing committee for their approval, their advice, consent, and ultimately their approval. So this would be an opportunity for the standing committees to be able to know and approve the transaction limits that were being issued for each of the cards and be able to ask questions and understand the reasons why. Whereas up until this point, approval was not done by the standing committees at all. So that would be one change. And also the second change would be that we are now requiring 2 signatures by the department head or the elected official and the procurement card administrator on each of the credit card statements, so that it's not just one person approving the charges, but there's 2, and their signature would indicate that they agree that the charges on the statement were for county allowable charges. So those are, I think, are the 2 key changes that are incorporated into this policy, but everything else pretty much just fleshes out what we've actually been doing.
Yes.
This is Pirog. May I make a comment on what Joe just said?
I'm sorry.
Hi. Yes,
Sure.
Mr. Berman, this is Corey Pirog. Joe, I read your policy updates, and I assume that these meet with the satisfaction of our auditor. They're quite detailed, and I applaud you for that. But when you have 2 people who is one of them is also designated as the P card administrator, may it be challenging, or might it be challenging, if it's an elected official and there is an employee that you are working with who becomes that administrator? Could there possibly be a conflict of their interest if they go against what the elected official may be designated or their supervisor? So that's just one concern for me. Have you thought about that or addressed that? Thank you.
No, that is not really addressed in this policy. Up until this point, there's only been 1 signature, so we thought that adding 2 would be an improvement. that I guess is an issue that exists no matter whether it's purchasing or any other approval of an invoice. It could very well be there as an issue.
Shepro, comment, I think that's an internal control issue for the elected officials.
Yes.
Yeah, so that would be an internal control issue, as Shepro has mentioned. So that would be up to the elected official to decide how they want to operate their office, and they have the ability to approve their P card statements.
Mr. Keels?
You okay? Yeah, Caius? Yeah, I just have thank you for the clarification. That was why I originally raised my hand, was for a little clarification on that. And there may be a Scribner's error on page, maybe you can clarify it for me, page 331 of the agenda today, section 6A. It reads, county procurement cards may only be issued by county employees, elected officials, comma, county procurement cards may only be issued to county employees, elected officials, offices, or departments. All in the same sentence. So I'm guessing one or two, the first half of that sentence is correct, or the second half.
Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, I'm reading it now to see it. It obviously does need to be corrected.
All right, so we have a correction then.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Mr. Keels? Any other comments?
That's, when Spike gets up, ask him to look at it and tell him that the old man isn't insane after all.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Microphone, Shepro.
Somebody else.
Mr. Shepro? Your comments?
This is Surges. I think he's in another conversation. We might want to delete his mic or mute his mic.
Can't understand that either.
I'm having difficulty.
He's talking to someone else.
Oh, all right. Let's have roll call.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes, but I'm confused if we're amending the Scribbler's error or how that's being handled. But yes, in general.
This is Director Onzik. What I think I can do is when it moves to executive committee in section 6A, what it would read, county procurement cards may only be issued to county employees and elected officials, period. And the rest of that statement would be stricken.
So should we have amended this before voting? Or do we just move it on with the understanding that we're passing this along to the committee with a correction being expected?
In my feeling, we're passing on with a correction.
Perfect. Then I vote yes. Thank
Very
you.
good. Continue our vote.
Tepe, Berman.
Berman, yes. Item T, a resolution.
Hold on a second. Tepe, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Temp. Item T, a resolution approving November 2021 claims paid.
Leonard moves.
Leonard moves.
Ford, second.
Ford second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. That concludes our new business. Any old business?
Yes, I have, can I, Mr. Berman, this is Pirog.
Yes.
Can I go back to Mr. Onzik's report, if I may have the liberty of the American Rescue Plan? And just some clarity, it's a real quick question. When, Mr. Onzik, when you did the balance remaining after potential allocations of $11.5 million. Was that including the $4 million that has been allocated for our not-for-profits, or has that been excluded from that final amount?
That is not included, no.
Okay, so that's so we have $11.5 million. Okay, very good, very good. So that's how much money is allocated that we can spend appropriately or accordingly as the committee so wishes.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that clarity. Thanks.
Any other questions? All right. For reports placed on file, we need a motion to.
Leonard moves.
Martin seconds.
Martin, second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Pepe,
Tepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Executive session.
Yeah.
We need to go to executive session to release our closed,
For review of the closed session minutes.
enclosed session minutes. We have a motion to,
Martin moves.
Leonard seconds.
Martin move, Leonard second, to go into closed session. Roll call,
Mr.
please.
Chairman, Sturgis here.
Yes,
For those, we had a problem with this the other day with not having enough people to make a quorum that were in the room to review the minutes. For those of us that are zoomed in, should we be just checking out of the meeting, or do you want us to stick around, or do you have enough people there to review these?
well, I think you need to stay in attendance.
I guess I'm asking the state's attorney.
By my count, we have 4 members present in the room of a 7-member committee.
Woo-hoo!
Okay.
So
Hi, everyone online. This is Kelly. Please accept your invitation to go into closed session.
Was there a vote?
no vote. We had a motion and a second, but we have not voted. Roll call, please.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez, Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Pepe,
Tepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. I need, we're back in regular session. Roll call for attendance.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard here.
Martin,
Martin present.
Sanchez,
Sanchez here.
Surges,
Sturgis, loving it.
Pepe,
Tepe here.
Shepro, Pirog,
Here.
Berman.
Berman here. Now back in regular session, we need a motion for to release our minutes. We have that motion.
Leonard moves. And I'm moving that we accept the recommendation of the State's Attorney's Office to release the minutes of 9:25 minutes related to executive session and closed session approval.
Do we have a second?
Ford second.
Ford, second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ford,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Sturgis, yes.
Pepe,
Tepe, yes.
Berman.
Berman, yes. Seeing no other business. Motion to adjourn.
Sanchez
Leonard.
moves.
Leonard,
Seconds.
there's just, all those in favor say aye.
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 Happy New Year.